What comes easy to you often helps you recognize what your why is. It's usually the thing in your life that brings you energy, clarity, and even joy. And I like this episode because it starts to push on something that really matters right now: how rigid corporate America still is, and how badly it needs to become more people focused. We talk about things like, why does someone have to be physically in an office or on a manufacturing floor if the work can still get done another way? And what about the growing divide we're seeing between generations at work, different expectations, different communication styles, different definitions of success? Lynette brings really thoughtful insight into how we can begin to bridge those gaps. She gets creative about how organizations can reshape how people literally show up to work: flexibility in shifts, flexibility in time, and a stronger emphasis on results over rigid rules. Because at the end of the day, it's not about clocking hours, it's about getting meaningful work done. Let's roll right in. All right, welcome to the Work Sucks, But I Like It podcast. Today we have Lynette Sorrentino. She has over 30 years of experience building businesses, leading teams, and coaching professionals to thrive without burning out. She has realized that too many high achievers chase success at the cost of their health, family, and fulfillment. I like how she says grinding is only for coffee beans.
Mhm.
Lynette, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. So, Lynette, I like to ask the guests when they first get on the first question: how do you define work?
Mm. It's gotta be joy-filled or fun, or otherwise go find something else.
So how about someone's 9 to 5? Is that gonna be filled with joy and
No, I think everything's all perspective, right? I mean, there are people who live to work and other people who work to live. So if that 9 to 5, they're doing it because there's something that is a mission, it's passion they're passionate about somewhere outside of that, maybe it's a hobby. I remember having someone that was a friend of mine who I could never figure out why did he was so smart, so talented, but he was a bartender at this bar I was at back in my 20s in Denver, and it's like, why is this intelligent man, well-read, well everything, bartending at night? Well, he loved climbing all the mountains and doing all the biking and all the stuff in the daytime, so that 9 to 5 gave him the opportunity to do the other stuff. So I think it's is it the means to an end? Is it your fulfillment? I could not do 9 to 5. I don't do bosses well, but that's me. But that doesn't mean that's what it is for everyone. But I think everybody should be doing it with some purpose and joy. And if you're saying, oh, today's Monday, oh, dang, you're dreading it on Sunday night, that to me is the grind. And that's when you need to go find another something else.
I really like your example, Annette, of that person, that works the bar and then goes and climbs during the day. I think that's like kind of the end state where we want our like lives and work to be at. How do we
Mm-hmm.
get there? Like, how do we find that we can
Mm.
place work into that compartment and live our life outside of that? How do we get to that state?
Good question. I think you have to kind of know what that why is, what brings you the joy, and also what comes easy to you. There's a lot of things that people could do to create a living that comes easy to them, but they've been conditioned to go to school, get a job, work the 9 to 5, and in their heart, they would love to do something else. So some of it is having the courage to explore it and step out of that. I think there's a variety of ways to look at that with perspective, but I think you have to have something in your life that brings you the joy, whether it's within that confines of the job or something that is your genius zone. It's something that it comes easily to you because there's probably someone out there who needs what you have that doesn't bring them joy. But here's the flip side, not to make it all confusing, is I absolutely love to cook. So cooking brings me joy. I love to entertain. I love to invite people over. I learned to bake from my grandmother, and my daughter once said, "Well, Mom, you ought to just make cakes." And I went, "I don't want to cook on demand. I don't want the
Mm.
pressure of that." So there's things that I think you have to weigh out pros and cons and variables and really just sometimes just journal it out and give some thought to it. Is this something that I could work a regular job and get a lot of joy out of going hunting or going fishing or going hiking or whatever it is, or is this something that I could really make a vocation out of and earn a really good living at?
So, Lynette, one thing I've always been interested in kind of exploring is, why do people want to leave corporate America? I guess, have this fear in the back of my mind that we're all going to be entrepreneurs one day and there's no one left to be working in the factories. And is there any hope for corporate America for people to want to do work at other businesses? What do you think about that?
I think there's possibilities of that, yes. But I think it has to be more people focused and less rigid. If you look at the companies that are thriving, if you even look at the cultures that are thriving, they're family focused. You look at the majority of women, they they're working because they need to financially, but it's really hard for them leaving those babies in daycare. It's really hard leaving their kids. Or maybe, if you're sick, well, you've only got so much PTO and oh, I can't go to my kids' afternoon program. So, what if you had corporate America that said, this is your job. This is what needs to get done. And as long as you're doing it and doing it well, and there's some metrics to measure it, who cares if it's 8 hours or 6 hours or what it is, as long as you give the people to think for themselves and manage and run their life, because not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's made that way. But what if you gave them the autonomy in the workplace and allowed them to be able to be that? You'd have happy employees.
I really love that, Lynette. So we'll keep building on that because I think it's really great how you introduced that and answered that. So let's think about now we've got salary, employees, and hourly. How do you kind of like use that same strategy for an hourly person, right? So, same on a manufacturing line. The hourly person needs to be there to get parts, right, for the company out the door. How do you balance what you just said with that?
Man, you're making me pull it out of my hip
I
pocket here.
love it. That's
Let
going
me
deep here on a
think here for a minute. I don't think that you can I think with a salary, you've gotta have a certain set of metrics and expectations that has to be there. I think for the hourly employee, I don't know, production lines, that's gotta be it could be a scheduling nightmare. But what if you allowed somehow there's gotta be a way that there's more than just 1 shift or 2 shifts or 3 shifts. Maybe you get creative with the shifts. Maybe you get, that they don't come in until 9 o'clock because they drop their kids off, and then they leave at 3:30 or 3 or, I don't know. But there's gotta be some way that you maybe look at their guess they're getting an hourly wage, but you get a little creative with the shifts. I mean, even think about, healthcare and nurses. A lot of them, it used to be they were working 8 hours. Well, now they're doing 12-hour shifts so they could have a little bit extra time. So, I don't think that nurses are probably paid hourly, but you get the idea. Let's look at being a little bit of having some flexibility here.
I really like that, Lynette. So I guess where that comes from, I work in manufacturing and I really like what I do because I can compartmentalize it from the rest of my activities. Kind of like goes back to the person, at the bar can climb, during the day. I kind of look at my work like that. Similarly, outside I can do these things. So over the 30 years that you've been working with teams, Lynette, what have you seen how work has been defined throughout those years? I mean, this is decades of work and your lifetime devoted to this. What have you seen in work in corporate America? How has it changed over the years and where are we going?
Well, I have to give you a little bit of a caveat. The majority of those 30 years have been working with teams, but they've been independent 1099 teams rather than hourly or employed teams, which actually requires a different skill set because you're leading a volunteer army. So with those people in a volunteer army, it's about your leadership skills. But I think that those principles and skills that I'm going to tell you should, if they were applied in corporate America, it kind of goes back to your original question. If they were applied, then people are more invested because the majority of corporate people from the research that I've done, I may be wrong, but they feel like they're just collecting the check and all the corporation cares about is them doing the job, doing the hours, and making the money. That's the way people in corporate America feel. So conversely, when I'm working with teams of 1099, it's about everybody having an invisible sign on them that says, "What's in it for me?" And when you focus
Mm.
on what's in it for them and what's their why and what's important to them, maybe it's money, maybe it's quality time with their family, maybe it's lifestyle, whatever it is, and you focus on them and building their confidence and building their self-esteem and helping them be good, wonderful examples to their family, and you focus on them, It goes back to what Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. So that's what I learned with teams and that type of leadership. And it is leading a volunteer army. It's leading versus managing. But in corporate America, what if we applied that same principle?
Mm. I love what you said about Ziegler. I love Ziegler as well, right? I love that quote you just said. He has another one where you take a train off the tracks, it's free, but it doesn't go anywhere, right? So, what are your thoughts as it relates to work with people today about the tracks? What are the tracks that we need so people can go somewhere, not nowhere with work?
Well, I think it's people need to have a defined path of what the possibilities are or where they might want to go and have it clear and spelled out. How many times have people said they're answering some sort of, an ad on Indeed or whatever and going, like, advancement opportunities available. Well, what are they? Well, I don't know, but there are some. You know, People leave because of those scenarios. They leave bosses, not companies. So I think that corporations could invest a lot more in their leadership of those people. I had a
Mm.
stint for about 7 years with the company that I was an employee. And that was fairly recently. That was from 2015 to 2021. And my biggest concern going to work for them was I was going to be an employee. Okay. Now I was still straight commission, but I was W-2 because they paid for my insurance. So I still had to jump through their hoops with their quotas and their sales requirements. And, of course, working with salespeople is a different thing in and of itself because you don't micromanage salespeople. They shouldn't. Let them go do their job if they're good at it. Just let them go, give them their head, like let a horse just go run, and they'll just do amazing things for you. I had a boss that let me do that. She trusted me. She knew I'd been in sales for a long time. She trusted me. We had a great team. We all made lots of money. Then she took a step down to take a side step, and then in comes the next boss, who was a micromanager because he'd worked for the state, it was all micromanaging. He was worried about hitting his numbers. And everybody's so worried about hitting numbers, then the salespeople feel the pressure. Then the salespeople are making the customer feel pressured to get the sale, and it becomes this negative, vicious cycle down the other direction.
So would you say the tracks is I guess the goals, like that boss coming in and saying these are the initiatives we gotta hit. Like what do you think are the tracks for employees? We talked about advancement. I guess I'm just kind of want to build.
I think the other thing with tracks is enrolling people in the idea. It's not, this isn't people will help support what people help support that which they create.
Mhm.
So if you're working with the team and saying, this is what I see as the vision, or this is what we want to do, how do you think we go about it? Because you know what? The workers already see what needs to happen, but management thinks they have all the answers. Or what's the corporate mission? Or we've got a problem. How do we go solve it? There are stories everywhere about, some famous, I don't know if it's Steve Jobs or who was, I don't remember, doesn't matter. The principle is he said, I need you to do this. Here's the timeline. I trust you. You guys put your heads together and you go do it. Okay, those are great stories. They're great monikers of things that people talk about, but why isn't it adapted in a traditional work environment everywhere?
So one of the things, Lynette, we say on the show is that success is not a matter of good luck, it's good skills. How do leaders tap into that skill that you're talking about?
The skill of their employees or their people that they supervise? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yep.
You have to pay attention to them. Pay attention and watch what they're good at. I have someone on my with a company that I work with right now. I have my own company and then another one that I work with, and she's gifted with words. She can create poems. She can write emails. She can do stuff. I tap into her for that. There's things that I do well. She knows what I do well. I'm good with the numbers. I'm good with speaking to people and helping her do conference calls with some of with her prospects. So it's paying enough attention to say who is good at what, because a chain is no stronger than its weakest link. So if you look at all those people within a particular department and look at each one of their strengths and you capitalize on all of them, imagine how strong the department is. So the leader capitalizes on that person's strength and then compliments them and acknowledges them and gives them an opportunity to prove themselves. It's just we're adults just like little kids. We just want someone to pay attention and recognize us. We don't need to be beat down and told why we're doing a bad job all the time.
So that work of paying attention is critical, it seems like is what you're saying. Why is it viewed in corporations as it's not happening, right? Because it's almost like, if you're not working on the line, you're looking busy, you're not doing work. Why is that work that you're talking about so critical to paying attention to your employees?
It's paying attention to not just what they're doing at work, but who they are. Who are they? Do they have a good sense of humor? Where are they working hard? Are they trying to support, um, an ill family member, a parent or a grandparent? It's who are they? They're a person, not a number. So it's not just the job they're doing on the line, because I would venture to say, Tony, if you've got a whole lot of people on the line, um, you if you were the leader and you paid attention and you knew about each one of those people and you said, "You know what? I noticed you did a really, really good job today. I know you're working hard for your family, or I know you need to do this." If you could go through each person and say, what's their why? Why are they doing their job? Noticing what they did well for that particular day, people will follow you everywhere.
So this is the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. What is something that sucks about your work? Working with these leaders that maybe don't want to change. So what is something that sucks? That's number one. And then what is something that you're doing to make it not suck?
I think a little bit of what sucks is a part of one of the businesses I'm with is very male dominated. So sometimes what sucks is like, hey, I'm a girl. I get emotional once in a while. So I've learned to curb that because that's some of that is just you have to understand what is what is. But the other part is I've learned to I had a boss once that said, and I think this would apply to other people, not just in sales. He said, the top salesperson can ask for anything that they want, but the one who does the least amount is the one who complains the most. So what I mean by that then is that, yes, there are things I may not always be looked at as, from a leadership standpoint or my opinion be asked for when as a woman rather than a man in this particular world, but I do my job and I've proved my worth in terms of what I put on the board for sales and what I produce. So what that also means is that if something happens that I really need help or I've got a challenge, I know I've earned my keep and I can call the president of the company because his cell phone number is on my cell phone, or I can call him and say, "Hey, we've got a problem here." So again, it goes back to building relationships. A lot of it's building relationships so that you know when to uh, pull in that, what's the word I want to pull in that favor if you need it once in a while.
Where do you see your work continuing on? Where do you see kind of is this you love what you're doing? Is there another sort of like endeavor you're going after? Like where do you see your work continuing on?
So the business that I'm in right now is in the credit card and the payments business. It's one that's I love taking care of my customers and saving them money and improving their costs. So there's really no reason to stop that. I'm a 1099 with the company, so I can work as little or as much, depends on what my financial goals are. The other thing that I do is I have my own business, which is Chaos to Boss. And Chaos to Boss, I do public speaking, I do workshops, I do group and individual coaching. And a lot of it is just showing people how to, someone's at my door. It's really showing people how to do the reason I became an entrepreneur. How do you have that work-life balance? How do you work from joy? How do you take control of your life and live it with intention instead of being in the grind and saying, "Hey, I don't wanna go to work on Monday." So that's what a lot of the speaking and the coaching and all of that entails. So why quit? At this point, I could, Social Security has become another stream of income, but what do you do when you retire? What am I get
Yeah, I know, right? I actually don't like the word retirement. I think we need to retire it. I heard someone say that and it's like, I agree, we got to retire that word. So, but I love your name of your company here, Chaos to Boss. Walk us through how you came up with that aha moments of that was the name of the company, Chaos
Yeah.
to Boss.
So kind of the sequence of events was I was with a direct sales company with I said the volunteer army for, 25 years, and I told you the reason I became an entrepreneur was I wanted freedom and flexibility. I wanted to have the income, want to be like a stay-at-home mom, all of those things, and that's how I teached all these other women in this company to do that. Then I move into the payments business, and I'm looking at all these business owners who were not living the values that I thought was important or in some version of that as a business owner. They were working too many hours. They didn't have the lifestyle that everybody says they want when they become an entrepreneur. And I went, well, something's wrong with this. And my daughter had said a couple things to me like, Mom, you ought to go back to doing some coaching and mentoring or something. You change people's lives because she talked to some of my team members in credit card. And so during COVID, every people did a lot of things during COVID. And I said, this is my chance to maybe start my coaching business. So I thought, well, first, what do I name it? What am I going to coach? Because after 25 or 30 years, you got a lot of stuff in your brain. How do you dump that out to somebody? So I listed all the things that I felt like I had skill sets. And one was productivity and time management, it was mindset, it was leadership, it was culture, it was sales. There were like 5 or 6 things. And I thought, okay, I could help all these business owners. But the biggest problem that I saw they had was they were not was mindset and the productivity piece. They were not thinking like employers. They were still thinking like employees or glorified employees running their own business. They were not working on their business. They were working in their business. So I saw that and saw the productivity, time management challenges, couldn't follow up, couldn't just all the stuff. So I said, I have to fix the productivity mindset piece first, or you cannot grow and scale and help with culture or sales or leadership or anything else. So that's where it went from chaos to boss because you had to start with that first. And so that's where it went. That's where it came from.
I love that. So I don't know where it came from, like working on the business. Is that Michael Gerber and E Myth? But I love
I,
what you said, like,
yep.
versus, working on the business, working for the business. I guess,
Mhm.
how do you transform people to see that distinction, right? How do you go from working for the business to working on a business? Like, what are the key things in that skill set that you're talking about with that mindset?
Well, there is some of it is like, well, what are you enjoying about what you're doing and what do you not? Usually it's um a lot of entrepreneurs are wanting to hold on, and so they're not willing to delegate, so that's why they can do it. So, that's why they keep, working in the business. But the other part is I had a lady I was coaching, and she's got a cottage bakery business. She was making candy over Christmas, and this is the perfect example. You wanna become an entrepreneur because you're usually wanting the freedom and the flexibility, you wanna be your own boss, you maybe wanna make more income. But I asked her, I said, "Well, which" she was just basically breaking even, and I said, "Well, what are your income goals?" And she said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, you're breaking even, but what if you could make more money?" "Well, yeah, I never thought about that because her husband makes enough money and they had corporate jobs." I said, "So what happens is when you're in a traditional corporate job, you create your lifestyle within the box of what you are paid on a week to week or every 2 weeks basis, right? So you adjust your lifestyle within that unless you go start a side gig or do other things outside of it, right? I said, but when you become an entrepreneur, you can throw all those walls out and say, okay, how much money do I want to make this year?
Mm.
And she went, whoa, I never, oh, wow, you're right. It just blew her mind and almost such that it took her a week or two to marinate on that and think about it. So I think that's a little bit of what I say about the mindset shift and letting go of control and delegating for other people. Because if you just keep doing it all yourself, all you did is just take on a lot more responsibility. And, how many hours are you working then? So a lot of it is bringing awareness. I have them make a list of everything that they do and what do they really only they could do and what is the rest of it that they could hire out? How much do they want to make per year? If you took that, let's say they wanted to make $100,000 a year and they're working 40 hours a week, 50 hours or 50 weeks a month, that's 2,000 hours. So if you took 2,000 hours and divide it into $100,000, that's what, $200 an hour, or I don't let's just say it's $200 an hour is what they're worth, okay? So, if that's what you as an owner are worth, then any job that needs to get done less than 200, you need to delegate out and pay somebody else for so you can focus on growing the business more. So, it's some of those examples that I work with people and show, and just a lot of it is just asking questions and helping them discover. But those are some tips.
That's great, Lynette. Thank you. What do you think of when I say the statement, money equals happiness?
I disagree.
Why?
There are millionaires everywhere who are very unhappy because they've just climbed their way to the top in some way, shape, or fashion that they've trampled people on the way up, or it's lonely at the top and they've isolated themselves. There's a variety of reasons. I think it's not the money, it's what you do with it. We can't take it with.
So, how do we be a boss then of our lives, if you will, or of companies and find happiness so we're not lonely at the top?
One, it goes back to what gives you joy. So, one, I love the businesses that I have, but I also have things outside of what I do that bring me joy. Whether it's my family, whether it's cooking, whether it's just, I love wine. I love to get together and, create a community of girlfriends and we go wine tasting. I do a Friendsgiving once a year. So it's like, what are these things that you really wish you could do, you've always wanted to do, but you never have? That's what you do with money. That's you create the experiences, you create the memories.
Because I guess one thing that I'm always curious about is like, I guess we'll use the extreme example, right? We've got the single mother with 3 kids working 3 jobs, right? How do you find like that joy in that work and balance money and all these things and talk about these values to have time to go out and do other things? What are your thoughts around that kind of work for this particular person to do? What should they do?
That's a hard thing. And kudos to any woman who is doing that and being responsible and working 3 jobs instead of choosing other governmental choices, if you know what I'm saying,
Fair
okay?
enough. No, good, good. Yeah.
Uh, but I think what happens whether you're a single mom working 3 jobs, whether you're dual income parents making a really good living, I think we've created a society that we're so busy doing everything for our kids, and that's a lot of where everything comes from and all the stress comes from. I'm a baby boomer. I learned how to cook. I learned how to do stuff on the farm. I learned how to drive. We all had chores. And one so the question is, how do you want your kids to be as grown up adults?
Mm.
Are you training them right now every day to do that? I know it's easier if you make the bed. I know it's easier if you do the laundry. I know it's easier if you do the dishes. But you know what? Your kids want to be with you. So, what if you made dinner together? What if you put the dishes away together? What if you washed the dishes? My kids used to love to play in the soap suds and all this stuff in the kitchen. What if you took those as family time and together time and you still got the job done rather than you work and then go play? Then you go play video games, then you go, and I'm not saying don't do that or don't play games, but what if you made work play? What if you made what if you made the chores around the house family things together? And kids took on responsibilities and you motivated them based on what they did and doing their chores. How much would that lighten that single mom's load if the kids did all the chores? Then yes, she worked, but then there was perhaps even just you don't have to go out, you don't have to spend a lot of money on an outing. What if they just went and had a picnic in the park? What if they went for a bike ride? There are things you can do that don't cost a lot of money, but it's probably not just a money issue, it's probably a time issue, and teaching the kids how to do that frees up a lot of that time.
No, I love that. So I'm going to kind of ask sort of a tangent question. I mean, we can kind of weave it in here to this conversation. What are your thoughts with technology today with respect to, how we use our phones and computers? Do you think it's helping us with the work we do or taking away from the work that we do? What are your thoughts?
Well, tools like anything else, overused can be bad but they're still a tool, And that could be technology, it could be a variety of things. It's really how you use it as a tool. One of the things I've talked to my kids who are in their 20s about is if you look at a text, if you look at an email, if you look at FaceTiming, if, all the apps and in person, each one of them is a tool, just like a knife and a fork and a spoon are a tool. You're not gonna be able to eat your dinner with a knife. Doesn't work very well. There are some things that just exchanging information can be just a text. But if you need to have a serious conversation, and sometimes my daughter will try to text me, and I'm like, I'm not having this. We're either going to talk in person about it or else we're not texting. There's just certain things that you do. And I think that when I look at young people, I told my son the other day when we went somewhere, I really applauded him. He's going to be 29 in January. I said, I really applaud you for when I introduced you to some of my friends that you shook their hand and you looked them in the eye. I think that we have to bridge our generations where if I'm gonna be a boomer and in my 60s and learn the apps and all the technology with my kids, then you also need to learn to have an adult conversation and look at me face to face and do things that are appropriate and respecting your elders so we bridge the generations together. Because there's not just one or other is good or bad, there's benefits of both, so let's bridge it together.
I love that a lot, Lynette. And I don't remember the source else I'd cited here, but I read something that Gen Z spends 74% of their time online, social interactions, and the other 26% is in person. So it's just kind of like kind of crazy thing. Because one of the things that I'm seeing, I'm a millennial, so I'm 38 years old here. And so we've been hiring in younger generations to the manufacturing world. What are your thoughts of, like, the younger generations coming in? I love how you said, "Let's bridge it," right? That's amazing. Like, you having all this experience, let's bridge your experience with and your views with the younger generations. What are your thoughts with work today with this younger generation coming in? We'll call it the Gen Zs and millennials if you wanna group us there too.
Yeah. I think there are some of them that are ambitious, that are willing to go to work hard and really work to have a job, and that are ambitious, and, I'm excited that I've got kids that are like that. I also think that there are people who are wanting to be influencers and do all the social media, and it's a get rich quick stuff that it's just not realistic. They're not, I don't know of any politically good way to say it other than it's just laziness. But, throughout the generations, there's people who are lazy. So I don't care what generation you're in, there are people who are lazy.
So how does it fit the framework of like chaos to boss? When I think of like, the young generation, they want to be social media influencers, right? They want to, amongst the noise that's out there of online, they want to have their own flag with Instagram, their own flag, posted for Facebook. What are your thoughts with your philosophy, your structure of chaos to boss with this younger generation coming in? Like, what would you teach them? What would you say to them?
I guess some of it is, if you're an influencer, what are you trying to influence? Are you trying to influence to make the world a better place and help someone? Or are you trying to influence to get yourself more visibility and credibility and money? If you focus, again, going back to if you focus on helping other people, what is your credibility? What expertise? What's your experience that you're bringing to the table other than you think you've got some fashion sense? I'm being really sarcastic here. I know.
I
I'm
like
so
it.
sorry.
Keep rolling with it. Keep rolling with it.
What how have you earned the right? I think we have to earn the right. And if you don't earn the right, why should I take what you say as believable? So go earn your credibility. Go get your experience. Go do this stuff and earn it, and then you can be an influencer. I talked to someone who was a coaching client several months ago, and I know she'd had some tough life experiences, but there's still a lot of challenges going on in life. And she wanted to be a life coach, and I went, "No, not yet. You need to get that stuff worked out." And honestly, one of my mentors said that when I was a new entrepreneur and I was having one of those horrible, terrible, bad, cry in the corner days. And she said, when you have experiences like this, it's either going to help you grow and or it's going to be something that you can help teach someone else down the road.
Yeah. So one of the thing that sucks, right, is the work that we need to do going inward. Why does that suck? Why is it hard for the social media influencer like, oh, I want to be a life coach, but they don't have any experience with that? Why do you think it's hard for them to realize that, I guess, and not do that work beforehand?
'Cause that work that internal personal growth work is hard. It's
Yes,
hard,
it is.
and so sometimes you have to do the hard stuff that doesn't come easy, do it within your strength, but yet you've gotta do it because when it doesn't come easy and you accomplish it, that's when you go, "Yes, I did it," and you build your confidence and you build your self-worth. But if it comes easy, you don't appreciate it. It's like people who have worked hard to earn $1,000,000 are the people who got a lottery. The people who won the lottery lose it. There's no sense of accomplishment and self-worth, and it you just don't appreciate it.
As we wrap up here, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Where's a good place for people to reach out to you to turn their chaos, if you will, to a boss? What's a good place for them to land?
So they could certainly find me probably the easiest way would be on my website, chaos2boss.com. So it's chaostoboss.com. There's ways to contact me on there. You can always find me on Facebook or Instagram, either under Lynette Sorrentino or Chaos to Boss.
Awesome. Well, Lynette, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for making me my brain work here this evening.
This episode is a strong reminder that if corporate America is going to evolve, it has to start by seeing people, not managing around them, by focusing less on control and more on contribution, less rigidity, more humanity. Lena's perspective is a strong reminder that leadership today isn't about doing everything yourself. That's chaos, really, as one person shouts at others to do things. Instead, it's about knowing when to ask for help, when to collaborate, and how to build teams that actually work together. Success is not good luck, it's good skills. If this episode resonated with you, I'd encourage you to reflect on where you might need to loosen the grip a bit, whether that's how you lead, how you work, or how you show up for others. The skill of self reflection. A scary one, as we've talked in previous episodes, but a critical one for you to keep developing. Thanks for listening, and as always, work may suck sometimes, but it doesn't have to be meaningless.
And there's a wind that blows.